And we're going to jump straight into the New Testament. We want to know what Jesus said about tithing. And who did Jesus mention tithing to? He was addressing tithing, the issue of tithing, to a very specific sect in his time. And in Matthew 23, verse 23, Jesus mentioned tithing specifically to the Pharisees, who are very firm in following the Old Testament law. Okay? So Jesus did not mention or address tithing to the church, but to this very specific sect of the Jewish people called Pharisees. He wasn't even addressing tithing to the Jew in general, but very specific group, the Pharisees. And in Matthew 23, verse 23, it will be bad for you teachers of the law and you Pharisees. You are hypocrites. You give God a tenth of the food you get, even your mint, dill, and cumin, but you don't obey the really important teachings of the law, being fair, showing mercy, and being faithful. These are the things you should do, and you should also continue to do those other things. I did not study enough what Jesus meant about continue to do those other things. But very clearly, Jesus wasn't too happy with them about them giving their tithe of the food they get, right down to mint, dill, and cumin. They were very diligent, observing tithing in that standpoint. But what they neglected, and Jesus rebuked them or challenged them, was they were not fair, they were not just, they showed no mercy, they were not faithful. And this supersedes their religious practice on giving. What I think Jesus was saying here, and why Jesus challenged them, is that even today, we as modern day Christians, if we put so much emphasis on tithing, but we neglect every other aspects of Christian values, ethics, practices, will God actually pleased with our tithing? Something to think about. I don't really believe God needs our money, but from a steward standpoint, Scripture encourages Christians to give, so that it's not that God needs our money, but God needs us to be fair and righteous. God needs us to be caring and giving, not just to keep all the hard-earned money to ourselves, but learn to share, learn to give, learn to do, contribute, support ministries out of their generosity. It is a matter of how do we steward the resources God have given to us. And what happened is, putting aside practicing on tithing, put aside all those law and demand or obligation, if we don't at all give or support ministries and just keeping everything to ourselves, it's a matter of time. We will cultivate, and we are encouraging ourselves to be self-centered, selfish. And soon we will neglect caring for others. We can see needs around, whether needs in your local church, needs in your community. But you say that, oh, somebody will take care of these people. Some people will give. I don't need to. I have so much lack and I have so much needs in my life. And I need to think about my children. I need to think about my retirement, and I need to think about this. I need to think about that. So we ended up keeping every dollar and cent to ourselves. Now that is not healthy as a Christian. That is not healthy at all. We will soon enough become self-centered, selfish, and think of nobody else except our own comfort. And this is something which we need to learn how to balance giving, or giving too much. Or when we give, are we giving out of obligation? Or when we give out of cheerfulness? It's something only you and God would know. I'm not here to put any pressure, I hope not to, but I'm just here to share my observation over many years, many years being in ministry, drawing salary versus self-funding house church nowadays. So there are a lot of things I observed about various Christians. So how do we want to guard our heart, and what sort of Christians we want to become? Just keeping everything to ourselves, or are we cultivating a good skill in managing resources God entrusts us? Okay? So what after Jesus said about Matthew 23 verse 23, now we want to look at the concept behind New Testament giving. New Testament giving. So we are looking at grace-based giving replaces law-based tithing. Giving out of that grace of God, or tithing out of that obligation. And Paul says, give what you have decided in your heart, not under compulsion. And that is one of the, if not the best attitude of the heart when it comes to giving. Don't give out of compulsion. In fact, from principle standpoint, this is consistent throughout, from Old Testament right down to the New and today. In the Old Testament, when God commanded the people, or rather whether under Moses' time or any other era outside Moses' leadership, each time when they bring offerings, when they give to God and place something on the altar, it should not be blemished. It should not be out of that dragging of the feet, so to speak. And that, another word, it is like, if our heart is not in the right place to give, it's better not to give, because it could be seen from God's perspective. It could be seen giving out of compulsion, out of obligation. It's not really a truthful, happy sort of worship. It's not a truthful, happy way of giving. So it is better not to give than, you feel obligated because everybody else give, because Caleb teach about giving, therefore I have no choice but to give. No, don't. I believe in our Christian walk with God, everything should spring or flow out of that heart of worship. All right? It should be that out of worship.